everyone, it's Sevi, and the ARKNIGHTS ENDFIELD closed beta test 2 has finally come out, and I was lucky enough to be part of it. So let's talk about my first impressions of ARKNIGHTS ENDFIELD. It's also due to officially release early in 2026, I'm guessing late January, around that time. So if this is a game that you've been looking forward to for a while, then I hope you're excited to know more about what the closed beta test is telling us about this game. So where am I at in this first impression? I have gotten in about 12 or more hours of gameplay of the closed beta 2, and that doesn't honestly really reflect normal gameplay pacing because most gacha players will only have time to play a little bit every day instead of trying to binge this. Like yesterday I played this for 9 hours straight, and today I'm on like hour 3-4. I'm still gonna keep playing it to see if my first impressions do change. So that being said, not really a realistic sense of pacing, but basically tried to do that so I could unlock as many features of the game as I could so that I could give my thoughts on it, of course. Now, I was invited by ARKNIGHTS ENDFIELD to try this out with the closed beta test too, so they are sponsoring this video, but I do have a bunch of critiques on it that I'm going to be honest about, and you can look forward to hearing about them throughout this video. Them sponsoring it does not change the fact that I have a lot to say about it, good and positive and negative. And also, I will be mentioning things about the story, so beware for spoilers. I will mark them around the story area or around the story discussion area, so just be warned. And then lastly, for this beta, even though this is the second closed beta test, this is my first ENDFIELD beta test. Things are subject to change. This is not the final product of the game. You can look forward to that in 2026. So with that, let's get started. Now, what is ARKNIGHTS ENDFIELD? At its very basics, it's a 3D anime gacha RPG set in the ARKNIGHTS verse. You play as the administrator of ENDFIELD Industries. This is CEO Simulator, aka the Endministrator, or some characters are gonna call you Endmin. I honestly find that pretty funny, but yeah, that's what they call you. And then this is set on the moon Talos 2. You also have a spaceship orbiting out Talos 2, and you're essentially trying to boot up life here, but then there are violent and invasive life forms and phenomena that keep getting in your way and make this very, very difficult. And you yourself, the administrator, have also just woken up from a 10-year sleep coma thing, and you barely remember anything. So hello, Amnesia Arc once again. So just getting straight into it, I want to start with the combat. Like, if you've played Genshin or Wuwa or even ZZZ, it's not that far off. But it has enough features that distinguish it from other gacha games that make it feel like its own thing, and it's not really just a copy-paste, which I'm thankful for. So basically, you control one character, but your teammates are always on the field with you, even when you're not in combat, even when you're just like exploring the world. In fact, they sometimes pick up items for you. You can activate a skill, you can activate an ult, and the skills and ults of your teammates as well, you can activate those because they're already on field. So all you need to do is activate them. They're going to perform it simultaneously with your own attack. There's also a skill point economy system, so you can have up to 3. You build up those skill points just by attacking, dodging, doing final blows, or the last attack of your sequence, and your available SP are shared among your teammates. There are also combo skills, which have their own unique triggers depending on the character. The characters, by the way, are also called operators, so I might refer to them as operator from time to time. So for example, Perlica's combo skill triggers when you do the last attack of your basic attack chain, which is also the final blow, and then Endmin's combo attack triggers when another character deals combo skill damage. And these basically show up as QTEs, but they have pretty generous timing, so it's not super stressful. And then there's also a perfect dodge mechanic, parry to stun, and then bosses generally telegraph their moves well enough for you to learn how to avoid that damage. So far, I find the combat to be quite fluid, it's quite smooth, and it's easy to pick up. I'm personally still learning how to optimize it, like in terms of gear and stats, and I guess like character synergies and such. For example, I feel like sometimes my skill points don't charge up fast enough naturally, or that ults don't charge up fast enough, and there are also different character stats like will, intellect, agility, strength, etc. They have different uses and different effects depending on the character, and all this of course might just be skill issue or just the effect of being a new player, and there is a bit of a learning curve when it comes to learning all that jargon or learning the stats and how the characters get built, but I'm in early mid-game anyway, so it's not that big of a deal right now. So I think that most players who enjoy the action combat of current gachas are going to enjoy this one. It's not super taxing and it's not very demanding, so that if you're kind of a noob with like reaction timing and reflex and skills, there are like ways to get around it without having to perfect dodge everything, you know? I'm not too worried about the skill ceiling yet, but that might be a different conversation when you get to endgame, which I haven't reached. Moving on, I want to talk about the the characters of this game are going to be a major selling point. And I have to say, so far, I don't think they have much to worry about in this regard. I didn't know this about the ARKNIGHTS universe, but apparently all the characters are some sort of half human, half beast race. For example, Chen is half Flung, or half Chinese dragon. Wolfguard is half wolf. And Dapan is, well, I don't even know if he's like mainly a guy, but he's obviously a panda that's like kind of anthropomorphic. I don't even know if he's part human, but you get the idea. And we even have a bunny girl, a horse girl, and a lizard man, and so on. And a lot of the current characters available are sporting the black-white accent color palette that comes with most sci-fi genre worlds. But I think that the difference in the features, depending on their race, lends enough variety that I don't find them super monotonous. I do wish there were more color, but you know, the features right now, especially for the base characters that are available, they give them enough variety that they look quite different enough. Now, I still hope that future character designs do get more interesting and they do dive into like more diverse color palettes or even more saturated color palettes, because right now, again, it's like kind of techno based, like sci-fi, black and white, that kind of stuff. But what really gets me actually is the accents, or the use of different languages and nationalities with the voice talent. There's a variety and I find that really fun. Like there's this character, his name is Pogranichnik, and he actually comes with a Russian accent. I haven't checked yet if his voice lines do have Russian expressions in them. Wolfguard is Italian and he actually says Italian stuff in his voice lines, and I'm pretty sure there's like some cutscenes and story dialogue where he speaks Italian as well, and I find that really fun. Aviwena, she's the bunny girl. She has a bit of an Aussie accent. I think it's Aussie. And then I think the character Catcher, I'm pretty sure he's Spanish. So there's also a lot of variety among NPCs too. Some of them sound Scottish, some of them sound German, some of them sound Russian, some have British accents, and I just enjoy it because this is where you can really feel like it's set somewhere in the future where civilization has just blended. It's a melting pot of people from different ethnicities that have just like descended all the way down. They're all in a spaceship. They're all working on the future, you know? There's no reason for these characters to only come from one place with only one accent. And I know that it might sound like a nitpick, but I just feel like it adds a lot more life and diversity to the world, especially with that being present among the playable characters. Oh yeah, and you can gift stuff to the characters as well. And I think that that increases like trust or friendship, and I don't know yet if that means that you can like romance them in a sense, but hopefully that gives you like extra interactions for them. So generally, my feelings about the characters so far are really positive. I feel like, you know, you do get a bunch of character physics, like you get boob physics, you get butt physics, you get hair physics, whatever. So far, I haven't seen anything that's made me feel weirded out, so it's still within the realm of like normal, but I know that you guys are gonna have fun with them. I feel pretty positively about the characters. Hopefully, though, that just keeps going up and up, because I would hate for them to start disappointing in terms of character designs. Speaking of the characters, it's time to talk about the story. First off, the prologue and the intro, it was visually stunning, very captivating. You're walked through landscapes and cutscenes, and there's this great sense of urgency moving you along. And it seems that there are some references to the original ARKNIGHTS endgame as well, because when I was streaming this, there were some chatters who were pointing out little things that they found familiar or that they were reacting to, even though it was only like 2 minutes into the story. So they were basically saying, yeah, I know about this because I've played ARKNIGHTS before. So for those of you who are already ARKNIGHTS fans, then you might find some fun Easter eggs or details or references there. Well, basically, I loved this part. And I think most people who got beta access can say that this part is amazing. Like, there's a boss fight at the end of it too to kind of throw you into the combat a bit, but overall, the dialogue is mysterious, it's interesting, and it basically tries to draw you in. And I think it successfully does that too. Now, for the story itself, I played through the first chapter, which has 4 processes, which I guess are kind of like the parts or the acts, and each of these were level locked, so I had to do a fair bit of grinding in between to get through all of it. And again, the prologue was amazing, and the first process, or the first act, was going fairly well with its pacing too. Like, there were good character introductions. I think that there was a good sense of urgency as well, until we save this old owl guy, and he walks us through like a dozen factory tutorials. Now, don't get me wrong, I end up loving the factory factory, and I'll talk more about that later, but its introduction to the gameplay comes at the cost of slowing down the story a lot. What started as a promising narrative started becoming fetch quests and factory simulator, which isn't ideal for storytelling. Anyway, having finished part 4, I have to say I'm not incredibly impressed by the story so far. I think it's okay, like it establishes the characters, it helps you get to know the world and the many incredible uses of Originium. You get to know the different factions like your Enfield Industries, the UWSD, Security Bureau, Agaloid Monsters, Landbreakers, and Bone Crushers, who are your enemies that weirdly have strong southern accents, and also things like the Ether Rift and the Blight, and how those are very bad for you. Do not interact with them. Plot-wise, it's very then this, then that, point A to point B, instead of, but this happened, and so this is the result. But then, you know, it's really straightforward, not a lot of twists and turns, just your main cast of characters trying to corner the big bad woman Neferith, encountering some obstacles, but nothing that you wouldn't really expect or nothing that really takes you by surprise, in my opinion. I think what makes it a bit redundant at the start is that Endmin has amnesia, and it just keeps coming up again and again, like you will remember, or don't worry if you can't remember. And one issue with amnesia arcs is oftentimes their character growth, especially in the first chapter, revolves around recovering their memories, or their lack thereof. I think there are nice moments in the story where Endmin unlocks or recovers some of his abilities relating to Originium, so that's at least something about him that isn't just, whoops, I can't remember anything. Of course, Endmin is headstrong, has an upright sense of justice, wants to save everyone, etc., you know, normal main character stuff. And then you have Perlica, who is your Enfield supervisor and the one who holds your hand through everything. Of course, she's very smart, persistent, resourceful, caring, and of course she blushes every time you compliment her. What I'm getting at here is that in the first chapter, I didn't really feel anything stand out plot-wise against other gacha games. Now, moving on to the world. So the world is kind of semi-open world, in which there are maps and areas that you have to teleport in between, but within those areas, it feels relatively open world. So you can jump, you can run, but you can't climb. And then there are lots of puzzles and chests and enemies that are roaming around, of course. And it does feel like a planet that's trying to bloom with life, especially the areas on Talos 2. So it's rich in foliage, there's wildlife, and there's a lot of that, not just enemies for you to fight. And then when I was exploring the spaceship called the Dijiang, the explorable area is a bit limited because it is a spaceship, but the visuals of looking out on Talos 2 is quite breathtaking. So I don't have a lot of complaints about the open world, honestly, or like the overworld. I guess it's not fully open world. Like sometimes the background or whatever's in the distance, it's just really pretty. Like visually, often it's really stunning. It feels bountiful, it's lively, and it's exciting. And in my attempts to rush my game levels so that I can unlock more content, I've already spent a fair bit of time trying to like scour the different areas for like chests and unlockables for the XP and stuff. So far, open world or overworld, it's pretty good, honestly. Not a lot of complaints there. One huge feature of ARKNIGHTS ENDFIELD is the factory. So again, you're playing CEO Simulator as the head of Enfield Industries, and that comes with establishing your factory base on the planet as well. And then these help you automate resource development, which you can use for crafting medicine, gear, materials, and more. And some of these you'll even need for quests and mini tasks. Now you can view it from the ground as a player, or you can also switch to bird's eye view for a straightforward grid. By itself, I really like the factory system. I play a lot of management simulators, and those keep me locked in for hours, and that's basically what this adds to the game. And if I weren't trying to rush the story, I would probably have spent most of my time playing around with the factory system right now. So you have machines that can process materials into different things, conveyor belts to connect those machines, but you also should not forget to plug those machines into the power grid, or else they just won't work. And then you can also set up factory outposts that you can use for trading and gaining currency, and you can also use them for the stock market. Okay, I know that there are a lot of games that have some kind of stock market, okay, whether that's RuneScape or Animal Crossing, but I haven't played those a whole lot, so I was really amused to find a stock market here. And you can use the tab for staple goods, so to buy things with fixed prices, and then there's the tab for elastic goods, where you can buy and sell at different prices depending on the day. So you can buy an elastic good when the price is down, sell it when the price is up, and boom, profit. And I just know that there's a ton of things that you can do with the factory system. Like, I haven't even buffed up my base a whole bunch because I was focusing on trying to progress the story. I've just been laying down machines that I need for gear that I'm trying to craft. Now, they do have blueprints that are either pre-made as a shortcut to put down facilities for certain basic materials, but you can also custom make your own blueprint if you want to, for example, copy paste a bunch of machines that you have in a certain arrangement or a certain layout. And I feel like that's a good quality of life addition, like for you to speed up your factory building. And apparently it says you can import blueprints too, but I'm not sure if that's like importing from friends or importing from elsewhere, but I haven't really been able to use this feature. I just noticed that it was there. And then you also get a research tree, of course, like any management sim. You use it to advance and unlock more machines and processes. And you can also put down combat units that are powered by the same electricity grid as the factory stuff. And then this is where you kind of get your tower defense as well. But so far, I've only ever used these combat units within quests or like as a mini game when the mini quest or a side quest requires you to. Now, the thing that I don't like about the factory system are the tutorials, because there are a whole list of factory simulations that basically serve as tutorials for each of the different machines and features of the factories. And these are great if you want to take the time to go through them, and I like that they're available, but they're also just really boring. And I feel like if you're someone who's not a fan of the factory system, it's just like 5 minutes of nothing. So I think that there are some ways still that those tutorials can be improved. And yeah, I just feel like they're not like characters, wherein characters warrant combat tutorials because those are like multifaceted things. These are actually step-by-step, like, okay, you have to operate this machine, put this thing in here, simulation done. And it's like, why don't we just do that in the actual base building, you know? So that's one big comment I have, because honestly, those tutorials, there's a whole list of them, and I don't know if anyone's going to get through them. But also, if you do get through them, then there's a whole lot of leveling XP sitting there for you to grab. Aside from that, I think there's still quality of life things that they can add when it comes to the factory, like a list of material pipelines, for example, so that if you want to produce something, then it shows you the intermediate machines and the steps, like a complete pipeline or like a complete flow chart, or at least have that all consolidated in one menu. Because hello, post-recording Sevi here. I did find out that the item pipelines can be found in the Enfield database menu. I kind of think there's still more room for shortcuts to the database interface from the manufacturing machines, but it's nice to know that it's all here in the Enfield database anyway. Overall, I am a fan of the factory gameplay. And honestly, if you run out of things to do in terms of exploration, there's always going to be factory base building, optimizing it, upgrading it, expanding it, and apparently becoming a stock trader. Okay, now let's talk about the weapon acquisition, because this is something that kind of took me by surprise, since it's not as straightforward as wishing on banners, which a lot of gacha games do. So instead of one weapon banner, there's an entire acquisition center. So there's a tab that shows you a bunch of weapons that you can straight up buy for currency, and these refresh daily or weekly so that it's easier to get copies of them. But then there are also weapons that you need to wish for, like mini banners. It seems that these are the weapons that are to be paired with the characters that are currently on the permanent banner, which I'll touch on later, but I don't like that you have to wish for them instead of just saving for them like some of these other weapons on the page that you can just outright buy. The special currency, by the way, that you can use for wishing for the weapons, you can get either by wishing on characters, getting the battle pass, or from exchanging other currencies this way and that. So even the currency that you're using to wish for those weapons, they're not that easy to come by. They only come from certain specific sources. So this means that a lot of 6-star weapons are going to be immediately available in one go, and you can save up for some weapons to straight up buy them instead of wishing for them. But it's honestly kind of gacha overload for me. If I'm gonna be completely honest about it, I'm not a fan of this, both in choice and in gacha. First of all, the fact that your main way of getting this weapon buying currency is from wishing for characters is not my favorite thing in the world. But I also feel like this does have some upsides, such as more certainty with acquiring these weapons by wishing on their individual mini banners instead of wishing on one banner and hoping the weapon you want will pop up. Or just knowing that many weapons are already available at a time and you just need to save enough currency to guarantee it. Personally, it's a system I'll just need to get used to, but it does have upsides. Now let's go to the character gacha, which is also kind of a mixed bag. So really quick, the character gacha is called headhunting, which kind of funny to me. But soft pity is 65, hard pity is 80, and then this pity carries over to the next banner. Now, you are on a 50-50. If you lose a 50-50, then you're guaranteed the rate up character within 120 headhunting attempts. So let's say that you reach hard pity, 80, you lose a 50-50, then you have 40 more wishes at most to get the rated up 6-star. However, once you lose the 50-50, the guarantee is not going to carry over to the next limited character banner. Your guarantee basically expires with that rate up banner. So that being said, it looks like here that the currently rated up operator is available for 3 banners, so hopefully that means you get a lot more time to accumulate those 120 attempts to fully guarantee the character. Now, there is a real possibility that they will change this upon official release, whether for the better or for the worse. So keep that in mind. This might not be the final thing. However, in its current state, it really sucks that the guarantee doesn't carry over. And if it did, it would be among the more forgiving character gacha systems currently, I think. Let's talk about the currency availability really quick because it's not something I can really gauge very well right now. Again, I'm binge playing it. I'm bum rushing the content. I'm not logging in for 30 minutes to an hour every day to, you know, get my daily dose of gacha from it. So I'm not pacing it realistically. Now, I can't really say how much gacha currency, for example, I'd be able to acquire if I log in for 30 minutes a day. This beta test, they tend to send in currency rewards to the beta test players, whether that's for filling out surveys or like as daily mail, in order to accelerate their experience and unlock more of the features, because there's a lot to cover when it comes to beta testing. So that might have to be an on-release thing to figure out. Stamina system, of course. Your stamina cap does keep going up with your level. So right now I'm at level 24 and my stamina cap is 240. I'll report in a bit when I reach level 25 or 26 if that stamina cap is still going to rise. But also, the higher level dungeon that you're farming, the higher the cost of the rewards as well. Of course, you get more or higher quality rewards. So, you know, normal gacha farming stuff. Overall, I've been really liking a lot of the game. I'm surprised actually at how high quality the game felt. And it does feel almost ready for release. I do think there's still some things they have to tweak, but in terms of graphics and performance, at least on a laptop, it's going really smoothly. The graphics are beautiful. Like, the game itself looks amazing. I like the character models, I like the look of the world, and I like the look of the features. The characters so far, they have interesting enough designs, and there's a lot of game to do, whether that's action combat, factory management. Not a fan of the story being locked behind levels once again, but a lot of gachas do that. And I honestly think that this is going to be a really big game, especially since it's backed by like the ARKNIGHTS IP, which again, I know has a lot of players and fans already of. So that being said, again, I really hope the gacha system improves. And this is my personal opinion and first impression of it as well. And at this point, I will say that I won't hold it against the game too much because, well, first chapter stories of these gacha games often end up rough, suffering from many of the problems that this one had. Past this first chapter, apparently there's more story available, and there's also another region to enter, so I definitely hope things improve upon arriving there. Anyway, don't despair, because even if I wasn't too hot on this first section of story, there's a lot more to the game than that. That's going to be all for this video. Let me know in the comments what you think of the beta test so far, whether you're in it or whether you've seen other videos or other streamers playing it as well. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel for more content, and I will see you soon. Take care!